Welcome back, fellow Jazz Bums. Today, we are going to dive into the new Joe Henderson Power to the People that has been reissued. Before we do that, remember to like and subscribe. Check out the Jazz Bums Discord. We're going to link that below in the description. And then also, we live stream on Fridays. So with that, we're going to jump into it. Does anybody have any opening remarks? Felipe, do you have anything?
It was cool. I think Power to the People has been highly expected this past few months since first announced. Power to the People is a 1969 record by Joe Henderson, not his first solo, of course, but not even his first on Milestone. But it is a milestone record in a sense. It's very important. I think that the title says everything, and the hype, the weight that everybody wanted to hear it. And the reissue came. It sounds very good. I do not have a reissue. I have there's a second press. It's a beautiful gatefold. This is more like that old style cardboard, a little more rugged. Beautiful here. Session pictures, liner notes. It's pretty much Miles Davis rhythm section, right? With DeJohnette, Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, Mike Lawrence, which is a trumpeter that unfortunately died very early. He only had one record release, and that was after he passed in 87. He passed in 83 of cancer. Okay. And Joe Henderson. And here's a rare picture of Ron Carter playing electric bass.
Exactly. That's a badass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That was the first Joe Henderson record to have electric drum, electric piano, and bass.
Yes.
And I think the title is very explicit in what it's saying, the times they were living. So let's go more into that.
Okay, before we jump into it, we'll talk about the reissue, but I wanted to quickly show just some background. So I know Felipe talked us through a little bit of this, but just to reiterate, the personnel, we have 5 folks here. So Joe Henderson's tenor, Mike Lawrence's trumpet on 2 and 5, so quintet at least on 2. And then we have Herbie Hancock, who's going to play piano, Fender Rhodes on tracks 1, 2, and 5, and then Ron Carter double bass and electric bass, and then Jack DeJohnette on drums. When we look at the lineup here, we have Joe Henderson playing Black Narcissist. Now, I know that he has an album, Black Narcissist, and he has revisited this title numerous times on its catalog, and I'm sure live performances too. I'm not sure if this is the first performance of it or not, but this is a composition to note because I feel like it is one that that I've seen come up a lot in his career.
Mm-hmm.
Isotope also is a pretty killer track. But sorry, so Afrocentric, Opus 1.5, Power to the People, the title track, Lazy Afternoon, and then Foresight and Afterthought, and Impromptu Suite in 3 movements.
Mm-hmm.
Recorded in 69 and released in 69, Plaza Sound Studios. The length is just over 40 minutes, and it was produced by Oren Keep News on Milestone. The album that was put out by Joe Henderson directly before this was Tetragon, which is right here in my background. And then if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, which is a live session. I think at the Lighthouse. Yeah, at the Lighthouse, which I also have here, which I did not plan. I just pulled out Joe Henderson records. So anyway, so there's just some background there.
Awesome.
Does anybody want to talk about this new reissue, like what it's all about?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's part of it. So, I mean, it's on Jazz Dispensary, which is Kraft's like cool label, basically. It's cut by, I think Kevin cut it, right?
I believe so.
It's pressed at RTI. It's got the Stoughton, nice gatefold jacket. And it was $30 on Amazon, which is kind of amazing. These records usually cost $40 now, right? Like the Tone Poets are $40, Prestige, the AP stuff's $40, the OJCs are $40, and this Jazz Dispensary is still only $30. So
they're 30, and the Contemporary series is 30. Those are really competitive.
They are, and they're both by Kraft. But I mean, we can get into I think we should talk about each tune, man. I mean, this record's pretty amazing.
Okay.
It's an amazing one.
Before we do that, Louis or Mike, do you have any initial thoughts on this one? Did you guys pick this up?
Yeah, I listened to it probably 4 times, and my initial thoughts were it usually doesn't take me that long to get a solid opinion on this. on a record, but it still seems like I need to listen to it more before I really sort of get it. I don't dislike it. It's not my favorite thing I've ever heard, but to me, it's interesting why I don't have a fully formed opinion yet.
I think it kind of makes sense to me, actually.
Yeah.
Especially with side one.
Yeah.
We'll get into all that. Mike, any initial thoughts?
Yeah, I just found myself, I mean, I've heard a number of times, and Joe Henderson is one of my favorites, but I really found myself listening to Herbie, Hancock, and Jack DeJohnette on this one, just because I've heard the record. I just focused in on that, and I think Herbie's playing is just excellent.
I think so too.
I mean, that's the thing, listening to the reissue, that those, Herbie and Jack DeJohnette sort of just, that's what I'm focusing in on.
Yeah. I agree, Mike. I think could almost say it's a Herbie record. His solos, especially at the second, at the end of side one, the last two tracks, it's killer on the electric there. Yeah. And that makes sense. I mean, Joe Henderson also played as a sideman for his band earlier, right?
Yeah.
Some context. I was reading Pitchfork gave it very high reviews. I forget who the author is now, but he was saying that this came out in '69. So if you think about what's going on in jazz, you have like Miles doing In a Silent Way, you have some avant-garde stuff starting, and you have kind of this Joe Henderson, which is more rooted. What he was arguing is like more rooted in more of a kind of a traditional extension of what happened before, in terms of like the composition style. So I mean, I totally get what he's talking about there, but I think it is important to kind of talk about like what's going on in '69. It is a tumultuous year. There's like politically upheaval in the United States. There's all different things going on with jazz. It's breaking off in all different types of branches. And then you have this Joe Henderson record, and it's Power to the People, which clearly is a political statement.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't think there's any it's a politically minded record. Does anybody want to talk anything about that, like the time period in the statement that this is kind of
Mike, I think that's what we also discussing before, especially some songs with the title are very explicit, like Power to the People. I think also Black Narcissus is also, it is a big statement. I mean, the way the song builds, right? If you go song by song, Black Narcissus has that kind of dual meaning, right? You can think about the Greek legend of Narcissus, the beauty, right? Or you can think about the flower, which is a flower that dies and rebirths every year. It's born every year. So it has to do with that too. Like, you can kill me, but I'm going to come back. I'm strong. I think it has a lot of that. And to me, side one is a discussion that we have been having as well. Side two is better than one. One is good as two. It's just different. To me, side one sounds more like, I don't know, just like laying the ground. This is me. This is my land. This is who I am. It's beautiful. Narcissus. And then on side two, I'm making my statement. Power to the people. And I'm gonna go for the kill. That's why it's a little more aggressive, faster. And side one, I think, is more contemplative. Hence those piano solos, beautifully laid out. But it has its moments too. Just my take and the overall feeling of the record. I don't know if you guys feel that way.
I feel exactly that way. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I do want to talk about each song. So we talked about Black Narcissus, and it's the interesting part to me, and I read this in the same review that you were talking about, Mike, is how it kind of just builds up, and then they kind of take it back down, and then it builds up. It's like a crescendo over and over again, right, throughout the track. I think it's probably my least favorite track of the record. Not that I don't like it, but just wasn't my favorite out of all of them. It was an interesting opening statement, though, I guess. Like to Felipe's point, to kind of build up what was happening with the record. But I'll tell you, I liked side two better at first, and that's probably still do. But after listening to this thing about 6 or 7 times, side one's pretty amazing. Like Afrocentric, that second track, is fucking killer, man. And I think that's one of the ones that it's one of the ones that Ron plays electric bass on, and Herbie. It's the first track that Herbie plays the Fender Rhodes on, and the Fender, and he just the way the textures and the picture it kind of paints with that Fender Rhodes is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What was y'all's impression of that track, Afrocentric?
Well, to me, I agree with what Felipe said, that this was like sort of laying the groundwork. So to me, it didn't jump out the way that it did to you, Chris. I thought it was sort of, I thought all of side one was super subdued until about.
Well, hold on. That last track is not subdued. That last, I feel like the fire starts on the last track and then continues to side B.
Yeah. It's like a transition, right? Yeah, it's a transition thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But as far as Afrocentric goes, I felt like it was in the same energy level as Black Narcissus. And I think that I felt like there was a smooth transition between the two, which is to say that the energy was still sort of low. Although that's when I started to notice Herbie a lot more as minutes go by on this record, the more and more I start to notice Herbie, especially on side two.
I thought, and I've always been of the opinion that 1 through 5 is makes it for me. Then not that the other two songs or performances are bad or anything, but I think sort of like for me, the heart of the recording is 1 through 5.
Yeah.
So the first side and the first song on the second side, Power to the People.
Yeah.
And I can see what Louis is saying as far as when he said energy level, but I look as that Joe Henderson is someone that just starts and just builds the energy up. It's never like just, or rarely is it just full on in there. I think that's how he constructs the way he plays, the way he solo. It's going to be, something that builds and builds. And then there's going to be that point where, bam, I just don't think it's, it symbolizes like he's low energy. I just think, he's trying to develop his theme and his improvisation, and he's just not gonna rush it. It's something he has thought about while he's not actually thinking about it while he's playing. But I don't know. Oh, Joe Henderson always had sort of, and I hate this. I don't hate to say it. And it was like an intellectual sound. Like I could just see, him thinking about how he's gonna frame a solo, or think about how he's gonna solo on Sam Rivers' Beatrice, which is what something that he is as much his song as it is Sam Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always can just imagine, just because the way he played, him thinking about how he's going to construct a performance.
I know what you mean, Mike. I feel like, though, I did struggle with this. Like there are records where I totally, like, I was listening to, and we might talk about this later tonight, but the Oliver Nelson with Eric Dolphy, I have that new jazz record that's being reissued. So I pulled that out and I listened to it, and that's exactly how I was listening to it, where it's like, this isn't something where it's off the jump hit a theme and then hit a solo and it's going to bring you in right away. It's they're playing with like ideas, and it's rewarding when you listen to the first track, the second track, that third track when it comes in. Now you understand like where that was going, and it's incredible. I feel like that sequence is really like, it brings me along and I understand it. I didn't get that with this. I felt like Isotope was like on the side one, that was my favorite track. And then Power to the People on side 2 is awesome as well. I feel like those are the two tracks like right in the center of this that really spoke to me. And I feel like the earlier tracks and the later tracks, I guess what you're saying is like that encapsulation of those is what is being able to produce that centerpiece. But I just felt like I feel like as a whole, I don't know, like I know the masters, and I honestly just hearing Mike talk about how you want to listen to Herbie play on this. Like I wasn't like I was listening in, but I wasn't dialed in to Herbie, and I was dialed into, is it Ron Carter on bass? Who's on bass?
Yes.
Ron Carter. I was dialed into Ron. I was listening to him. I feel like I always dial into the bass. I always kind of feel like whenever I'm lost, I look for that bass line and I just connect it to it, and I just go with that. Like that's kind of my default. But yeah, I feel like I need to revisit this. I only listened to it twice, and that was kind of my initial reaction. I think it's a good record, and I think they're extremely talented. I think it's fine, but like, yeah, that was it. I feel like it was kind of a mixed bag for me.
I think it's something you need to listen to 5 or 6 times, like and really deep. Because I felt the same way the first couple of times I listened to it for the first 3 tracks, but today I literally listened to it like 4 times a day.
Yeah,
I didn't do anything else for at least one of those listens for the entire thing. I just tried to really focus on what was happening.
Yeah,
like on track 2, like that. God, I'm just going blank what the name of it is.
Afrocentric.
Afrocentric, yeah. Mike Lawrence is playing on that is killer, man. The trumpet on that is amazing, and then Herbie's really cool. But let's move to the next track. So the next track's Ron Carter wrote, right?
Yes.
And it is
Opus 1.5.
So if you listen to that one and really focus on Herbie, right? Because it sounds like kind of more of a traditional tune, right? But if you listen to Herbie on that, he's playing like all this dissonant stuff. Like it's just not quite what you hear, right? And I think Henderson was doing the same thing, but to me that was super interesting.
Yeah, another thing that stands out, right, Chris? If you listen to this record like randomly, if you just stop and someone say it's a Miles record, you can totally buy it. Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, I really like. I think that third track actually, man, that Ron Carter track might be my favorite one of the first 3. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a beautiful track for sure.
But then Isotope.
Yes. I just think, as you said in the previous track, and I think in the next 2 tracks especially, Roberto pointed out here, you pointed, I was about to say that, and I felt that many times listening to the record. Man, Mike Lawrence, he's not a famous name, so nobody's talking about him, but he's like killing on the record. The counter melodies he plays to Joe Henderson, that interplay, that talk they have, it's amazing. Sometimes you don't even know who's playing. That they're so
tight.
Yeah, right.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
So
I noticed that too.
So Isotope, what do you think about Isotope, Mike? You said you like that one of your favorite tracks, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like it more. I'm thinking of it. It's that's a Joe Henderson standard, and we're getting a different version of a Joe Henderson standard. So but it still works within the context of the album for me.
It did for me too. I did feel like it was not as, I don't know, part of the theme maybe as some of the other tracks. Like Afrocentric is obvious. Black Narcissus is obvious. Power of the People is obvious. But yeah, I like Isotope a lot. But Power of the People on side 2, that is a smoke show, man. That song is freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's quite a statement, right?
It's 9 minutes long, and I think it. When you think about the title of the tune and then listen to it, it's really a powerful song and a powerful message.
Yeah.
So then we move on to Lazy Afternoon, which, and I'm sorry, I'm not too familiar with this, but it looks like it's credited to Maros and Latouche.
Maros and Latouche.
So that's Lazy Afternoon. It looks like so it looks like that's a standard. And then it goes into Foresight and Afterthought, which is an impromptu suite in 3 movements in 7 minutes.
Yeah. So Lazy Afternoon is cool because it's one of the most out there tracks on the record, I think, right?
It's my favorite one.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. And I enjoyed that a lot. But then the last one, it says impromptu. It's literally free jazz because they just played it like it wasn't, planned at all. So I thought that was a really, really cool one too. But I think, man, Mike, when you Notes and Tones, when you said 1 to 5 is kind of the record for you, I kind of agree. I don't dislike the last two songs, but
no, yeah, I mean, I don't know, lazy afternoon, sort of like, I don't know, it's a standard, so it's in there, and it's nothing wrong. I don't know. I just the core for me is that Foresight and an Afterthought. Yeah.
Well, hold on. That is kind of a weird sequence. If I was going to take these tracks and put one behind the other, would I put Power to the People and then the next track Lazy Afternoon? I feel like that's just
maybe he's just winding down, man. I don't know.
Well,
it doesn't sound like I like the statement. Like, power to the people. After we kill everyone that has the power and take everything from them, so we survive as humans, then we'll have a lazy afternoon and celebrate.
Track sequencing is what I'm understanding, and I guess this was always obvious, but it's an important piece of the album because it's how we listen to it. And we were literally half this conversation was talking about the flow, and it's like how these tracks build, and then there's this big kind of piece with Isotope and Power to the People, and it's like that is an important part of our kind of understanding of the record. Like if they rearrange that track listing, we would have a different opinion of this, I feel like. And anyway, I mean, I don't want to read too much into it either. I feel like what Mike you're saying is like really kind of the concept is in this 1 to 5, and then these other two are kind of they're a standard and this other kind of conceptual piece that they just added on to fill out the record. And maybe that's overgeneralizing, but
no, I mean, I do believe 1 through 5 is the core of the album. I mean, that I'm not saying the other stuff is like an afterthought, but it's the core.
Also, one of the really interesting thing to me was the difference with Ron Carter when he was playing acoustic versus playing the electric bass. So Ron hardly ever played electric bass. He tried it and he just wasn't his thing. But when you listen to the electric bass parts on the two tracks, Power to the People is one of them. He's doing it. It seems like he's just doing a totally different thing.
Yes.
The way he's playing along in the song is different than when he's playing the acoustic bass.
Yeah. And this was a formative time. I think it's important to say, again, this is 1969. Miles is doing his electric. He's starting his electric years. He's doing it in a silent way. He's doing Bitches Brew Soon. He's working with Herbie, Ron Carter, Jack DeJohnette at the same time. Ron Carter's experimenting with electric bass. We know that ultimately he pushes away from that, but this is his kind of experimentation with it. So, not to jump ahead, but I feel my conclusion is, do I think this is a 10 out of 10 record? I think, I wouldn't frame it like that. I would say that I would recommend people get this. If you're a jazz collector, I think this is must have, honestly, because it's reissued and it's $30. I think there's no reason to not have this. And I think there's a lot here to reference, to enjoy, and to kind of understand what the trajectory was going to happen after this. And I feel like it's kind of an important statement at the same time. So I would say people should pick this up. And then also, if you for me, and it sounds like Louis as well. So sorry, I'm speaking for you, Louis, but give it a shot. Don't just listen to the first track and think you're going to listen to some early hard bop stuff that's just going to, swing right away and just get you hooked in. This is a slow burn. Give it some time, revisit it. There's a lot going on this record. And I think ultimately, it's a good record. And I think, people should definitely, listen to it. Guys, thank you for your thoughts. Before we get out of here, are there any final thoughts on this? Chris, Felipe, Louis, Mike? I know I kind of did a little wrap up and just recommended this record. But I feel like, understanding the context of it and putting it, within that really kind of helps understand it. And I feel like I also don't want to overly hype this either. I mean, I think it's a good record. There's a couple tracks on it that I think are outstanding, and the rest are real good by the masters. So I think it's definitely worth having. It's great pressing, great presentation.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think you're underselling it greatly. I think it's an 8 out of 10, probably. I think everyone should.
I'll say 8 out of 10 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my opinion, which is fine. So,
Which for Joe Henderson is like way above average.
That's true too. Yeah, I mean, that's true too. So that's my thought. I think everyone should buy it.
Yeah, no brainer.
Yeah, I think it's definitely should have a place in most people's collection, and it's also a different period of Joe Henderson. And I guess you could say there are probably like 3 periods of Joe Henderson. This is like the middle period. So you can listen to how he sounded, post Blue Note.
Thank you for providing your thoughts. We're going to get out of here. Thanks for watching. We're going to remember to like and subscribe. Leave your comments if you picked this up. Let us know what you thought about it. Be interested to hear. We love hearing what you guys think about the stuff. And with that, we're going to get out of here. So we'll see you next time.